Welcome to Therapy Unpacked while holding the line, brought to you by Got Your Six Counseling. I'm Brittany, trauma therapist, law enforcement veteran, and first responder ally, and your trusted guide through the wild world of mental health without the fluff and without making you sit in a circle and talk about your feelings, unless you want to. This podcast is all about unpacking the stuff that weighs on us: stress, trauma, burnout, crappy sleep, messed up relationships, and all the shit we shove down deep and keep moving on with. But here's the deal. You can't hold the line if you're falling apart behind it. Whether you're in or out of uniform, behind the badge, riding the rig, or just trying to figure out why you snap at your dog when the coffee runs out, you're in the right place. We'll break down therapy concepts in plain English, with maybe a few dark jokes along the way, and give you tools that you can actually use. No kumbaya or hand-holding required. Just a quick heads up before we dive in. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It's not therapy. It's not a diagnosis, and I'm secretly not your therapist just because you're listening. If you're struggling or need support beyond what we talk about here, go ahead and hit pause and reach out to a licensed mental health provider in your area. Seriously, therapy is cool, okay? So take a seat, grab a snack, and let's talk. This is Therapy Unpacked while holding the line. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unpacked while holding the line. I am your host, Brittany, and today we are on episode 4 of our Code Silence series, and today is Service Above Self When Duty Demands Too Much. I'm sure that's got some of you guys feeling a little uncomfortable right now, which is the goal, Today is all about putting your job and your duties above yourself, others first, at the expense of your own physical and mental health. There is a hidden cost to that. I got lots of statistics for you guys today, and hopefully this will be useful in terms of maybe getting some support or reaching out and using some of the services that are available, right? Long shifts, high stress calls, and repeated trauma exposure take a toll on our first responders. Remember, we mentioned previously that about 30% of first responders will experience a behavioral health condition in their career. Now, that is due to a variety of things, right? Whatever they've been exposed to, home factors, maybe they had a bad childhood. Those are all factors that affect someone's resilience and their nervous system's resilience to not develop PTSD, right? Neglecting self-care can lead to burnout, compassion fatigue, and even strain on your relationships, right? I think another thing that's not talked about as often as like the strain on families of the job, right? Like we focus heavily on the first responder, which is right and okay. And like, let's please normalize that, right? Also, the families pay a silent price as well, because they're the ones behind the front line supporting their, paramedic, EMT, LEO, fireman, whatever, right? Dealing with that on the back end, right? While they're dealing with all these other stressors right in front of their face. So let's talk about burnout and compassion fatigue for a second, okay? Because they are not the same. Burnout is the emotional exhaustion and a reduced sense of accomplishment. So you are emotionally exhausted. You feel like you can't ever be accomplished or successful, or maybe you stay buried under your work all the time. You just cannot catch up. And then you get to a point where you're so emotionally exhausted that you cannot function. Burnout is dangerous. Burnout is dangerous for any of the helping professions, ours included, right? We have to combat burnout all the time. Compassion fatigue is different in a way that it is secondary traumatic stress for the caring of others. They both manifest similarly in that you might be irritable, you might be cynical, or feeling detached from family members, friends, all those things, right, that we're looking for. You feel yourself pulling away, you're probably burnt out or you're experiencing compassion fatigue. In this field, compassion fatigue is a very real thing. Trauma therapy is hard work. We wouldn't do anything else. We love our jobs.
But there's a sense of some type of compassion fatigue that exists for us too, because we sit in this space with people who have a lot of trauma, and we have to figure out how to not have that affect us while also helping you, right? Our patients. So it's very much the same for those in the first responder community, law enforcement. When I first of all, when I say first responders, I mean everybody. Okay, like I paramedics, EMTs, 911 dispatchers, they are often forgotten. Firefighters, right? Like if you fall in that's I'm talking to you when I say first responders. Okay, I don't feel like I need to keep being specific, but just so you know, I'm talking to all of you, and you guys are all included in this conversation. Um, so both manifest similarly, and early warning signs are early warning signs that you are completely and utterly overwhelmed by everything, whether it's administrative tasks, supervision tasks. Maybe you're a captain or a chief or someone in charge, and I always say shit rolls downhill, but not always, right? Sometimes it just sticks with you. So a study in New York of 6,000 first responders, okay, all of those that I mentioned a minute ago are included, remember, revealed that 68% of that 6,000 that participated reported being severely stressed due to their job-related duties. 59% were burnt out of that group, right? So that's a lot. For 6,000, that's a small group in my mind. I feel like it's small, maybe. That's a lot. That's a big split. And probably the ones that are stressed, the 68% that reported stress, they're probably also burnt out. That's why they're feeling stressed, and they just haven't examined that. Of course, I didn't fully read the study to see how they tested these people. However, the statistics are insane, right? When the job defines who you are, resting and taking time, vacations, whatever, that feels selfish, and it feels like we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Oh, I have to be there. My coworkers need me, the patients need me, whatever's going to happen, I can't take another. Yes, you can. You have to get into a place where you can give yourself permission to rest, to recuperate. Because what will happen is that if you don't, and then you finally do have this amazing family vacation planned or a couple of weeks time off because you're like, oh, I have time off, I'm gonna take it. You're not going to do anything because your body is like, oh my gosh, we've been living in survival mode for so long, or we've been living in this heightened state of stress and anxiety or whatever it is that you're feeling. So then when you finally slow down, you get sick. You're tapped out. You just kind of want to dissociate and detach even still. And that's not fun for the people that are supporting those behind them, right? Um, there's an analogy that we use in the therapy world that has been used on myself, admittedly, many times. That when every time you take time off, you get sick, or every time you take time off, something happens with you physically. And the comparison is a deer that gets shot by a hunter. And maybe it was a kill shot, maybe not. But that deer is running and running and running. And when that deer finally falls, guess what? It dies. Because the adrenaline rush and the survival mode, that deer just wants to survive and it's running. But the moment it cannot run anymore and falls down, everything shuts down. And I don't mean that to say that you will die. Okay, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that when you finally slow down, your body doesn't know how to do that. And so anything, all the stress, now that you can finally rest, is brought back to the light, right? Because in survival mode, the only thing that matters is survival. Everything else falls back. So studies show first responders in Virginia are more than twice as likely as the general population to die of suicide. Ignoring limits equals more exhaustion, emotional fatigue, burnout, all the things, right? That highlights the risk of chronic stress and untreated mental health concerns, right? We're going back to some statistics because in the beginning, and I think I've mentioned this in previous episodes, that the 30% of first responders developed behavioral health concerns, right? That all includes depression, PTSD, anxiety, right? That is in comparison to the 10% of the population. general population who have mental health concerns, right? That risk is higher when they report or they develop, right? These lead to increased rates of suicide, which we already mentioned, burnout, anxiety, with 85% reporting symptoms related to a mental health disorder. Okay, so we were at 30, but now 85% of first responders report symptoms related to a mental health disorder. I don't necessarily mean PTSD, but that's a possibility because 1 in 3 first responders will develop PTSD as a diagnosable condition, right? Depression, I mean, it's all split up, right? 37% of paramedics, 28% of EMS, and 22% of police officers all report depressive symptoms. Firefighters and law enforcement are more likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty, which has always been a very shocking statement for me because you wouldn't think that that's true. Firefighters put their life on the line. They're in there fighting actual fires. Anything could fall, right? Anything could happen. Law enforcement too, right? Chasing down bad guys, car accidents, pursuits, depending on your district, right? More likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty. It's a scary thought, which is why this is so important to me, to get this out there, to help with the stigma, to help with the culture, to shed some light. I think we need to stop normalizing the being okay all the time, right? You had a hard call. Firefighters, law enforcement, EMS, 911 dispatcher. Maybe you had an awful call. I think we need to normalize that, like, it's normal to not be okay after those things. And that's why you have peer support groups. And even if you don't have that, you still have people that you work with that were there with you to process some of that with. Normalize not being okay. Pushing through, pushing it down, dissociating, detaching, all of those things cause huge problems later. And if you can address it in the beginning, the risk is much lower, right? 37% of fire and EMS have contemplated suicide. That's a pretty big number, 37%. Not that they've attempted, but they've contemplated suicide. And suicide is a dark, dirty subject for a lot of people. And that's another reason why it's important for me to shed light on this, right? You would be shocked at the amount of people who say, yes, I've had thoughts about killing myself before. Stop shaming that, right? Because if you're in my office and you're saying that, then that means that you've taken the first step to get help. You're in any therapist's office, right? I always say that if somebody says no, they're probably lying. It has crossed everybody's minds at one time. And it doesn't mean that you have a plan or intent or that you would actually do it. We call those intrusive thoughts, right? And I think a lot of first responders, veterans included in this, feel afraid to report that to a mental health professional because they're afraid they're going to be locked up. You know, probably, if you're in that field, what it takes to have someone put on a grippy sock vacation because they're suicidal. We here at our practice, myself included, know that the dark humor and the passive suicidality, is in a way somewhat normal to the way that your nervous system is functioning. It's too much. It becomes too much. So I'm not saying that suicide is the way out. What I'm saying is reach out, get some help. I would much rather you guys be alive and functioning than not because you are afraid to get help because of the stigma that is behind it, right? And shockingly, well, maybe not shockingly, more than 80% of first responders experience traumatic events on their jobs. That's a lot. That's almost all of you. And the other 20% who are not experiencing traumatic events, I don't know what they're doing, but that basically means that anybody on the road has the potential to be exposed to a traumatic event, and you probably will be at some point in your career. choosing to be traumatized because we were never meant to see the things that you guys see, never meant to process the things that you meant to process in the pursuit of helping others, of being a helping professional. It's a heavy weight to carry, but you can't help them if you're not helping yourself. You have to put yourself first sometimes, and it's not selfish. It's actually, I'm going to say job security to some degree, right? I'm not in a good space. If I'm not feeling well, if I'm emotionally not okay, I'm actually probably more of a danger to my patients than I would be if I made them wait for the next appointment or rescheduled them or whatever. And the majority of them understand that. If you need time, take it under whatever the guise, right? Physical deterioration is also I don't want to say constant threat, but risk, right? Chronic stress, exposure to toxic things, hearing loss. The statistics are pretty high with those too. More for probably law enforcement and firefighters, but anybody else could fall into that too. And that, depending on your job, right? Being on the lookout for those. If you had a physical ailment, you would go get help because you wouldn't be able to do your job appropriately if you didn't. This is the same. You have surgery on your knee, on your hip, on your foot, whatever, and you have to take time to rest. Guess what? Your mental health works the same way. Sometimes you need time. Sometimes you need to step away, zoom out. Taking care of yourself is important because you can't do your job if you don't. Cannot stress this enough. We all know this already, right? I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here because I'm sure they push it in trainings and orientations or, meetings throughout the year, or however that works for your agency. We push it on each other here all the time. And sometimes we're like, no, we're feeling seen, but it's true. Sometimes it takes someone else pointing out, like, hey, you're not okay, are you? Let's normalize saying, you're right, I'm not okay. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to go into it. You don't have to be very descriptive, but no, I'm not okay. I'm not doing well and I'm struggling. They probably are too. And now that you have been able to normalize that for them, now maybe they're going to confide in you that they're not okay either. And then it's time to start looking at what to do next, right? When it's time to rebuild this balance in your life after you've learned how to take better care of yourself, it's super important to set boundaries. I know, that's so cliche, and I kind of want to throw up saying it, but it's true. Work-life balance is so important. When you leave the job behind you. Leave it there. Fire station, police station, wherever. I leave my stuff here because I have to, right? I can't take it home. We can't talk about it to our families. So what do we do with it? We put it away. We save it. We talk to another helping professional. Maybe that means that you're using peer support. We're gonna dip into that a little bit more in a few minutes. But setting boundaries. When you leave, you leave. When you're at work, you're at work, and when you're at home, you're at home. I understand in this field, might as well, that often there are emergencies that you cannot predict or avoid. Sometimes you have to go in and help. Maybe there's a mass casualty event. Maybe there's something going on where there are all hands. Fine. That's very different than your everyday work-life balance in that you have none. Some people are all about work, which is also a defense mechanism. We won't go there yet, okay? But you just keep that in your mind. We just plant the seed. You feel me? We're planting lots of seeds. I'm going to be referring back to some of us to be like, remember when I said, okay, engaging in hobbies and social connection. This makes me laugh because the majority of first responders, including veterans too, right? Like they're not first responders, but they're in this category, are like, well, I mean, I have things that I like to do, but I haven't done them in a while, or I don't want to do them, or I don't have the motivation. That's also a problem. And if you don't have any hobbies, that's an even bigger problem. How do you, as a grown adult, not have any hobbies? Find one. Go to a pottery class or an art group, or I don't know, a therapy group works pretty well too. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. Work on your car, yard work, maybe planting, like plants, right? I'm a plant mom. Maybe plants are your thing. And if they're not, it's not hard to become that way. I am the most relaxed when I'm getting, no, okay. I'm the most relaxed either getting tattooed or working with my plants. Tattoos cost lots of money, you feel me? My plants are already there. They're living things that help you feel better. Putting your hands in the dirt, touching grass. I say it all the time. Tell people, go outside, touch grass. It releases dopamine in your brain, just so you know. If you don't know what dopamine is, you can Google it, but it's the feel-good chemical that your brain releases. You get a dopamine rush. It feels good. You're relaxed, right? Find the thing. And if you already have it, but you're not doing it, try it again, just once. Maybe just do it once that week. Maybe once you do it once, you want to do it again. Twice the next week, 3 times, whatever your time allows, right? Social connections make me giggle too, because this population, people who have experienced trauma in general, have a hard time with social connections, social interactions. I get that. I feel you. If you don't have any friends, find some. A lot of people are like, oh, well, the only people I have to reach out to are the people I work with. Okay. Do you trust them? Do you consider them friends? If you called them right now and said that you are not okay, would they be there for you? Yes. Okay. That's your social support network. It is so important to use those people in a way that like supports you and supports them. It's got to be reciprocal. Your social support network is so important to building resilience. I hate that word. I have talked so much about how I hate that word, but it's true. Resilience is a thing. It's your ability to withstand stress and trauma and things like that. People with lower amounts of resilience bleh, are more likely to develop PTSD. Maybe they have other factors going on. Having friends is important. Having hobbies is important to fill your time and to have the support that you need. Sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is important. We're going to go into sleep hygiene in depth in a later episode. But sleep hygiene just basically means that you are setting up a routine for yourself at bedtime and you're kind of doing the same things. And you're, when you're tired, you're going to bed, and you're not forcing yourself to stay awake, and just regular practices that come with to support healthy sleep, right? We're not drinking a bunch of alcohol or, smoking a bunch of whatever it is that's your jam. Sleep hygiene is important. Okay. You're also able to Google that, but I mean, you can stand by for more because we're going to go into that later. Another episode. Nutrition and movement. Circling back to the hobbies. Maybe you like to go to the gym. Maybe you haven't been in a while. Maybe you set up a whole gym at your house. Just doing it one time, getting yourself up, motivating it to do it one time will increase your, chances of being successful the next time. For a lot of people, it's just the getting started that's hard. If you can just get started, right? You'll reap the benefits mentally and physically, emotionally, all the things, right? The pushing through culture, um, the pushing through everything culture needs to stop, right? We have to have time for ourselves. We have to make space for ourselves. In the therapy world, it's all about self-care, right? What's your self-care regimen? What do you do for yourself? First, I'm going to tell you what self-care is not chores. It's not running errands. It's not showering alone because you have 60 kids. It's not yard work. It's not any of those things. Those are chores that you have to get done. Self-care is something that you're choosing to do that's going to result in you feeling in a much better place mentally afterwards. Doesn't even have to cost any money. Whatever that is for you, that's what we're doing. That's what we need to do. We're taking the time for ourselves because our job takes everything else. So you have to take care of yourself in terms of that, right? And regular therapy check-ins. Maybe You already have a therapist. I love that for you. I'm so glad. I'm so happy that you were brave enough to reach out given the barriers to care that exist, which we've talked about in our first episode. If you don't have a therapist, find one. You do not have to talk about the things that you think you'll have to talk about in therapy. Not with us, anyway, not with me. Because a good trauma therapist that knows their patients and their population is not going to force anything out of you that you're not ready to share. I would hope that any good therapist would never do that. But there are some out there that don't know how to work with trauma or first responders or our population that we're speaking to now. Find someone that fits for you, where you don't feel the judgment, because we're not judging you, where you don't feel the judgment, where the stigma is less, right? Because getting help and being in being a well human in your job is much more important than that. Much more important than the rest of it. And if everybody in your station, building, job, unit, um, you know, shift was all honest with each other, and I mean like 150% honest, the majority would be that they're probably not okay. They are probably not okay. Prioritizing yourself is not selfish. It's sustaining your ability to serve. You also have the option of peer support. Maybe your agency has it, maybe they don't. Peer support is a really good, I want to say intervention because it's not. It's a resource for people who have peer support teams, whatnot. I know there are mixed reviews and the statistics are all over the place, right? Some people say that peer support has been really, really helpful for them, either directly or indirectly. Some people say that it wasn't the greatest experience. And I think that boils down to the people providing the peer support. In order to do peer support, you have to be trained in CISM, which is Critical Incident Stress Management. I'm trained in it, certified in it, actually, as the clinician role. I am not, I could be, right, for someone who needed to talk to, but this is more of a therapy conversation if you're having it with me, right? The level of secrecy, confidentiality that exists in a peer support interaction is actually above the type of confidentiality you have in a therapy session. So let me say that again. Therapy is confidential, right? But maybe you go to court, maybe you need to subpoena your records, maybe you can get them, right? Maybe I have to comply, whatever the case. Maybe I'm sitting in court talking about you because you requested me to be there. That's very different because it's recorded. Everything's here. You have a medical record. When you engage in peer support with your peers, that is considered to be privileged. I'm sorry, privileged. Like patient, doctor, lawyer, client. That is privileged communication. When you have a peer support interaction, nobody should be taking notes, writing anything down, recording, none of that, right? Because this is a conversation between two peers about how one is maybe not okay, or maybe they're both not okay. And it opens the door to reduce that stigma because, wow, this person has walked in my shoes. This person has been here before me. They know what I'm going through and they feel the same way. That's very validating to have. If there are people on the peer support team that are not supporting that and that are running their mouths and gasping, find someone else or go to therapy. But peer support is also a really good option because it gives you resources. Maybe you need rehab. Maybe you just need a grippy sock vacation because you fall into the 85% of people who've contemplated suicide and you're back there again. There's no shame in that. We want to reduce the shame. We want living well humans doing this really, really hard work that the rest of us don't even think about. I say us, the rest of the world doesn't even think about. The cost, like the hidden cost of this job on you mentally and physically, right? Service above self starts with service to yourself. I hope that makes sense. Service above self starts with you serving yourself above others when you need to. When you're on the job, of course, you got to push those feelings back. We're pushing through. But when we're no longer having to push through, it's time to feel it. It's time to feel it. Being uncomfortable, it's gross. But if you push it down, it's not going anywhere. It's just going to rear its ugly head later. And what then? So important. Take care of ourselves. Reach out for help if you need us. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, okay? Don't stop playing with me. You guys watch the video. Hit the like button. It's not hard. It takes an extra half a second, okay? But I thank everybody that's been listening so far. Please join us on our main podcast that drops every other Monday. Therapy Unpacked. Hello, this is us. Drops every other Wednesday. We have some PSAs uploaded. So stay tuned. Facebook, Instagram, all the things, and you'll get any updates that we provide. And hopefully you get to view some really awesome content. I will see you guys on the next one for episode 5. Hang in there.
I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Therapy Unpacked. If something at home made you think or just helped you not yell in traffic for 20 minutes today, let's consider that a win. Make sure to follow, subscribe, or do whatever your app calls it so you don't miss future episodes of Therapy Unpacked. And our main event podcast titled Holding the Line with Got Your Six, now streaming on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms where podcasts are available by searching Holding the Line TY6. If you know someone else carrying a heavier load, feel free to share this with them, because we're all in this together and no one should have to go through it alone. Until next time, stay grounded, stay human, and remember, it's not weakness to reach out for support and unpack the shit you've been carrying. In the words of someone wiser than me, go forth and do magical shit, everyone.